Hi everybody, I'm Matt Devine, founder of Truth Teacher Services. We're here with our placement manager, and she's going to introduce herself in just a minute and answer some questions and shed a lot of light on things that teachers want to know about teaching within the public school system in Korea. And here we go. Without further ado, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So, like Matt said, my name's Meredith Sargent. I'm the placement manager at Truth Teacher Services, and I taught in Korea at a public school for 3 years.
So, Mara, we're just going to ask you a handful of some of the most important questions that teachers have kind of requested and always want to know. So, the first one is going to be, since school in Korea is different than it is, in the Western world, what can you do? What tips do you have to be successful within the school system?
Well, my first tip would be that communication is key. So it's really important when you're teaching in a public school or in any school with co-teachers that you have an open line of communication with your co-teachers. So that system could be different between any two people. So you kind of need to right away find a system that works for you and your co-teacher. And then I think that if you have some open communication, that will just definitely guarantee a lot of success. And my second tip would be that you don't just need to have patience when you're teaching with a co-teacher, you need to be understanding. So especially in Korea, there's a lot of last-minute things that will happen, and teachers will get really frustrated and say, nobody told me. But quite often, the teachers who are telling you also just found out, so you should really try not to take it out on them and to just be understanding that things like this are going to happen and try and learn from it and always be prepared and try and go with the flow.
That's an excellent last point, just kind of being optimistic and knowing, hey, they might have just got that information, so it's important not to take it out on them. That's great. So optimism, definitely key, and going with the flow. Okay, so the next question is, if you could have told yourself one thing before you left, what would it have been?
Looking back now, I think I was really nervous and scared before I left. I remember being at the airport and kind of having a bit of a panic attack. Like, what am I doing? I've never even been to Korea, and I've signed up to teach here for a year. It ended up being the most amazing 3 years. I mean, 1 year turned into 3. So I would say, don't be scared. It's going to be such a great adventure. You're going to have an awesome time. You're going to learn from everything that's going to happen. And the second piece of advice I would have told myself is self-reflection is key. So whether you're having good experiences or bad experiences, just really try and learn from them. If something's not going well, kind of reflect. How did it get to be this way? How can I make it better? So again, the optimism, just try and be really positive.
So important, Kate. And from your response, it sounded like just actually getting on the plane, going to the airport and getting on that plane is key. And I know it can be difficult, for a lot of people to actually follow through with it. But it sounds like you'll be rewarded. Of course, people want to know about, what are things, or one thing in general you didn't know about Korea before you got there that maybe you wanted to know?
So the one thing I didn't know was everything. I really didn't know anything. And every day I was there, I was learning something new. But the biggest thing when I look back now, being back in Canada, is I didn't realize that my time in Korea was going to be such a big part of my life after I left. So when you go to Korea, I just kind of thought it's just 1 year, we'll just have fun, teach, see what happens. But still today, everything that happened there is still affecting my life. I'm still in touch with friends, co-teachers, students. I'm thinking about the food, the culture, everything. It was just awesome. So I would say that the one thing I didn't know was everything.
That's great. I like that answer a lot. So next, Mary, let's talk about kind of from a female's perspective. What would you tell someone about going to teach like you did, specifically from a female's perspective?
From a female perspective, probably not to worry. It seems very intimidating when you go abroad, especially if you go alone. I mean, I went with my husband, so I was really lucky in that sense. I never had that isolation feeling, but I had a lot of girlfriends who were alone. And I would say the best thing you can do is surround yourself with good people, get some friends right away, get involved, and if you're even not sure about foreigners in your community, the teachers at your school are going to want to hang out with you and be friends, I'm sure, and show you around and show you restaurants. So just be open to meeting new people, trying new things, and I guess the biggest thing too, obviously, is just be smart, make good choices, and it is very safe.
And Mary, I was just going to follow up on the safety aspect because I think that ties in nicely. I think that's a big thing that not only females but even males worry about Asia in general because it's so different. But let's talk about the safety aspect versus, Asia, in contrast to the West and even Europe. I mean, how is it different? I mean, how is it safer?
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say the first point I would make to anybody who's thinking about going abroad and teaching in Asia, and Korea is where I lived, is I felt more safe there than I do now in Canada. I feel like there, everybody's kind of looking out for each other. It's a culture that's very much social and involved with other people, so everybody's very friendly and hanging out with each other and trusting, and everybody's out late at night and early in the morning, and on top of that, it's just so crowded. So I think everybody's got their own agenda. Everybody just knows what they're doing, where they're going. There's not a lot of... I didn't feel there was a lot of people just hanging around looking to cause trouble, Everybody's so busy. So I felt very safe there.
It is kind of very, very much go, go, go. Yeah, absolutely. And that's, for all you audience members, that's Korea specifically. Obviously, it can vary in other countries and even in Southeast Asia. So, thanks for that feedback, Mer. The next question I want to ask is, if you could go back, would you prepare differently? And if so, explain how.
Definitely, the biggest thing for me would have been learning Korean earlier. I was in Korea for 3 years, and I didn't start to learn it until my 3rd year. And I remember once I realized how easy it was to read and speak, I was just kicking myself. Why didn't I learn this earlier? It would have made my life so much easier. So whatever country you're preparing to go to, my advice would be actually learn some key phrases, try and learn some of the language. And again, once people see you studying, my students loved helping me, my co-teachers loved helping me, my friends loved helping me. Everybody wants to help you learn it. So if you can show that you're taking an interest into something about their culture, everybody's going to want to help you. So you should really take advantage of that. And for me, it was learning the language. And then that gave me so much independence.
Mara, that's a great point because that also ties into another huge question that everyone asks. Do I need to know the language? Everybody is curious about that, or how much they need to know. Let's talk a little bit about how with the intimidation factor of actually learning the language. Was it difficult for you? Like you mentioned, it was easy to read. I guess we should point out, in Korea specifically, there's only 24 characters, less than our alphabet, right? So yeah, it's pretty easy. Was it intimidating for you? Or did it come along, easier? Just talk a little bit more about that.
So the first 2 years, honestly, this is embarrassing. I didn't try because I was just so lazy. I have no excuse. I just didn't even try. So when I started to learn, I realized how easy it was right away. And again, all the help I was getting, it just made me learn it so quickly. I had no time to be intimidated because I would get to a subway station and start reading signs and be like, oh my gosh, I know where this subway's going. Or I could get a menu and be able to read it. And that just gave me so much, motivation to keep learning more.
Sure. And let's talk about another thing with absorbing the language. Some people are like, well, it's going to be difficult. I just know me, and I know it's going to be difficult for me to learn. But actually being there, isn't it, can you speak a little bit more about just actually absorbing it and just picking phrases up, like left and right?
Exactly, and that's what made it so great, was I could practice the alphabet and the sounds and everything, and then I could go and take the subway one day and start reading all the signs, and just on a subway ride from where I live to Seoul would maybe be 30 or 40 minutes, I could just stand in front of the subway map, and as we pulled into each station, read it in Korean, and then as we pull in, read it in English. And like, oh, I got that one right, So test yourself.
Exactly.
If you're out there, or if you're in a taxi, I'd be driving down the street, and I'd be able to start reading the signs on my block, which was really cool because half the time I didn't know what they were. Just little characters, and then oh my gosh, that's a chicken shop. Oh, that's a bar. Cool.
It's exciting, right? It's so exciting. Yeah.
It is.
Well, so yeah, that's a good message for all of you listening. That things you pick up the language quickly, especially words and phrases used very often. Ordering in restaurants, in a taxi cab. I mean, before you go, these all seem like very overwhelming things. And you know what? In your first couple of weeks, it might be a little bit overwhelming, but you will very much be able to pick up the language. So,
and I would just say too quickly, I had some friends who did language exchanges. So if you get there in your first couple weeks and you think, hey, I don't really know too many people, I don't know the language, look up language exchanges. Because I had friends who still are in Korea and have, I'm sure, lifelong friends in these exchange groups. Sure. So that's something else to look into if you're going there alone.
And that's another thing that we at Truth Teacher Services love helping our teachers with and connecting you to partners and things like that. So that's another great suggestion too, Mary. Appreciate that. Okay. Moving on. So let's talk about you and your husband, Jared. The both of you are blonde Westerners. Okay, so tell me what it was like being a young foreigner in Korea, and how Korean people reacted to the two of you.
Right. My perception about being a blonde foreigner in Korea is that it was a lot of fun. There were times it was intimidating at the beginning. You go and you're walking around your community where you're living, and everybody is recognizing you, and you definitely stand out. But I try to take advantage of that. So it's a great way to meet people right away because you stand out. Foreigners know who you are for sure. So if you go into a bar, anybody who speaks English will come up and start speaking English. But also I found sometimes just random people would want to strike up a conversation with you. We had a guy who lived in our apartment building, and anytime he rode the elevator with us, all he wanted to do was talk about how he went to Canada once, what a great time he had. And I thought that was really neat, that he got to practice his English. And I try to put myself in that role now when I'm back home in Canada. Sometimes I'll see people speaking Korean, and I'll want to go up to them and be like, I lived in Korea, I had a great time. So I think being a foreigner was really fun, it was exciting, I enjoyed it. There are moments maybe where you want to just go for a walk and not stand out, but it is what it is.
Mary, let's talk about those moments maybe for some people who are not used to that kind of celebrity status attention, I guess, in the beginning. And Koreans or even Chinese or anybody looking at, like, kind of staring at you because you look so different. Can you talk about that? Because I feel like some foreigners might take that the wrong way in the beginning and say, what's wrong with me? What did I do? Did you experience that at all, or did you feel that way at all?
When you bring that up, yeah, I do remember sometimes for sure having moments on the subway where I was like, that's so rude. Why are they just staring at me, And I would just want to start staring back at them to show them this is really uncomfortable. But it's one of those moments where I think I would go back to earlier in our conversation today. Sure. You're in Korea. You're in another country. It's an experience. Maybe it's not a good one. How can you change it in that situation? I don't really know. Maybe you can just look at them and smile, like, hi, yes, I'm a person, just riding the subway, just like you.
Yep. Because 9 times out of 10, I would say, Mary, tell me if you agree, that they genuinely are just interested. They are not looking at you.
It is. Yeah. And that's why my advice, definitely don't get angry. They're not, you will get stared at, and they're not trying to be rude. Sure. Maybe they haven't seen a foreigner in a while. Maybe they don't know when the next foreigner is going to be on their subway car, so they just want to take it all in. And that just comes from, I think, them even being young. Like, I had students who would take my hair and rip it out and want to keep pieces of my hair. So I look at these people on the subway and I think, it's just like my students in 10 years, Yeah. Maybe they want some of my hair too.
Of course. Hey, talk about a souvenir for life. That's great. Okay, Mary, let's kind of just transition into the last 2 questions. What was a surprise about the culture when you got there? Can you think of any surprises, like, wow, this is just so different, or this is weird or strange, or anything come to mind?
For me, one would definitely be the food. I mean, Korean food is so different from Western food. Just what they have for breakfast. When I would tell my co-teachers, oh, I had, yogurt and a banana for breakfast. What did you have? They had soup and rice and meat and kimchi. I'm just thinking that must take so long to make every morning.
Sure.
So the food was one thing, and the spiciness of the food. I kind of got used to it towards the end, but it was something that definitely surprised me how spicy the food is.
Sure.
And another thing would be just how welcoming the Koreans were, I found. Like, once you get to know a Korean, they'll do anything for you. They'll give you the shirt off their back. They'll give you their umbrella if it's raining. So that really surprised me. I guess I just thought I'm just going to be here for a year and it won't really matter. But I still have Korean friends who I talk to and co-teachers, like I said. So that surprised me. I didn't think I would feel like such a part of, I guess, a community while I was there.
It's amazing to hear. Mara, I think it's a good point to also just go back a little bit. You mentioned the food. I would like to personally point out, when you go to a country, Korea specifically, that's so different from your own, is the diet. I mean, obviously you have to realize and you have to be open to eating different food. But I will say, and tell me, it would be great to hear your experience. When I first arrived, I was really shocked and kind of nervous with the food because it just looked so different. But honestly, after a week, it just clicks, and you're like, this is, like you were saying, it's so fresh. It's prepared so well, very lean, very little fat, just great vegetables. It's just a really great diet, and there's a lot of spicy food, but then there's a lot of food that's not spicy, so you don't.
For sure.
Right. But of course, you should point out that there is a lot of spicy food. Did you have a similar experience when you first arrived with your husband? Did you both feel like, wow, I mean, this is different in a good or a bad way? Or
you know what? It's all coming back to me now, because it's been, I'd say, exactly 4 years since we stepped off the plane in Korea for the first time.
Yeah.
And we stayed at a hotel because our apartment wasn't ready, and there was a breakfast buffet. And I'm still in shock. Like, I'm going to Korea, and I see this breakfast buffet, and I don't know what half the things are. So, for you, if it only lasted a week, that's pretty good. I have to be honest to everybody who's watching this. My food shock probably lasted a month or two, where I was like, I'm not eating that. This is too weird. But once I was like, this is my life. I really have to try and embrace this, and I started trying new things. My co-teacher would say to me after 2 or 3 months, she'd see me eating something at lunch and say, when you first came here, you wouldn't even touch that. And I'm like, now I want more. So, yeah, it definitely, the more you try it and the more open you are, it's definitely the more you're going to enjoy it and get used to it. And, again, the Koreans are going to be so happy to see you eating and enjoying their food. Like, I feel like they're very proud of their food. They love it. So there's nothing better than for them to see you wanting seconds of something.
Absolutely, and I think it was a great point. How you said your food shock lasted for quite some time, for about a month, but there's going to be foods that you more or less get addicted to. They're just so good, and you really crave a lot of Korean food when you're there, and we're talking about really delicious lean meats. Vegetables, soups, barbecue. I'm a huge fan of the soup culture. So if any of you out are listening and enjoy eating soup, but ones that aren't super creamy and fattening, boy, you're gonna love Korea. That's all I have to say.
That would be, yeah. If you asked me what I missed right now, it would be the food. It's crazy. I miss the food so much.
Same. Okay. Last question, Mara. We're going to just finish up with some suggestions. How would you suggest teachers stay happy while abroad, which I think is probably the most important question to make it a great year. So how would you stay happy while abroad, and what are some things that you guys did?
So I know that everybody's different. Right away I want to say that, but for me, what ended up making me really happy was getting out of my apartment and going and doing things. So going on trips and exploring around Korea, taking advantage of vacations, going to other countries, and on weekends getting out, joining sports, joining gyms, meeting up with friends, My co-teacher had us over for dinner many times, so going out, just for me, it was just getting out. I really wanted to make the most of each year, because each year I was there, I didn't know how much longer I'd be there for. And it's crazy when you leave. You don't realize how fast it's gone and how much more maybe you wish you had done. So for sure, just take advantage of all the time you have while you're there. If you're sitting in your apartment and you're a little upset and you're homesick, my best advice would be to get out and do something. Take your mind off it. Have a great experience.
Yeah.
And you'll have so much to share with family and friends when you're back.
And that's such an excellent point, and something that we, through actual research and experience with other teachers, teachers that tend not to have a good time are very pessimistic about their situation and about the culture, and they just don't want to do things. So if you think about it, if you're in your apartment, like Mara was saying, get out. If you're in your apartment, I mean, you're gonna think a lot. You're gonna think about your family. You're gonna think about things that remind you of home. So you need to get out of your apartment and stay active and do some of the great things that Mara suggested. It's such an exciting culture, and there's so much to do for everyone. And people, are out and about all the time. So that's another really exciting thing. So. Merritt, we really appreciate the time, and we really look forward to anybody who wants to ask additional questions. Either Meredith or myself will be happy to answer them. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Matt.
Bye.